Welcome to Executive Insights for Life Sciences Innovators, and thanks for joining us today. On this podcast, we'll explore leadership, innovation, and growth in the life sciences sector. I'm Don Alexander, founder of GeneCoda, a boutique executive search firm dedicated to connecting visionary leaders with life sciences companies shaping the future of therapeutics and scientific tools. On each episode, we'll dive into candid conversations with industry pioneers, uncovering strategies, insights, and real world experiences that drive success in our industry. If you're interested in presenting as a guest of a future episode, please scan the barcode image at the top of my video frame and follow the instructions. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Mark Stead, the VP of Discovery at Atomic AI. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Don. Thanks for having me.
Mark leads both drug discovery and business development efforts at the intersection of artificial intelligence, structural biology, and RNA targeted therapeutics. At Atomic AI, Mark leads the company's discovery efforts, applying cutting edge computational and experimental techniques to identify and optimize RNA-targeted small molecules. With a career spanning early-stage research to translational development, he brings deep expertise in RNA biology, drug discovery, and building high-performing scientific teams. Mark has over 12 years of experience spanning startup leadership, large and mid-sized pharma business development, alliance management, and early-stage drug discovery. He brings a rare dual perspective, equally fluent in the science of innovation and the strategy of bringing medicines to patients. Mark's track record includes over $200 million in upfront payments and more than $3 billion in potential milestone payments from high-profile transactions across Amgen, Kite Pharma, a Gilead company, and Exelixis. At Atomic AI, he's helped focus the company's scientific strategy, launched multiple discovery work streams, and built a growing team positioned to transform RNA drug discovery. One other quick thing. When not leading his team at Atomic AI, Mark enjoys camping and off-roading, California weather permitting, and spending time with his wife and children. So let's dive a little bit, Mark. Again, welcome. Let's dive into some of your career journey and leadership philosophy. So to get started today, what inspired your move earlier in your career, I guess, from the lab bench into business development and alliance management functions?
Yeah, thanks, Don. So, I guess I'll expose the weakness that I have, and that is I am a scientist through and through at heart. Um, right. So, started off PhD, working in RNA biology before it was cool. Went off and worked at Amgen, working on a variety of drug discovery programs. And I didn't wish to leave the bench because I wasn't good at it or I didn't enjoy it. I had a really great time. There was always a unique challenge. There was always something to do, and I felt like I was making an impact. But it's that last part, it's the impact. That's what really shapes my drive to kind of further my career and do new and different things. Um, and I noticed that when you've got the right mix of both business strategy and investment and also the science, and when you've got that great overlap between the two, that's when an impact can really be made, not only for a company, but for patients. I mean, there's a reason why we do this work. And so, early in my career at Amgen, I saw an opportunity where I could really bring those two things together, and that's doing business development. And so, while at Amgen, I was doing both search and evaluation and transactions for early stage deals. So the technology enabled things, research collaborations, pre-IND asset collaborations, those sort of things. And there, it really requires that very strong kind of fluency, let's say, in both the science and the business to be successful. And so that's the reason why I kind of made that transition. And then beyond there, it's been kind of learning the business of biotech. Um, Biotech is a fascinating industry. There's so many different aspects of it. From early discovery through figuring out how to do business development and do deals and find the right opportunities and how to have these win-win opportunities where both a partner and a partner company, both large and small, win as a result of actually working together. And so figuring out how to make all that work, how to bring that molecule forward through collaboration, bring it into the clinic and then toward commercialization, there's a tremendous amount of things to learn. And so every kind of step throughout my career, whether it was at Amgen or moving into alliance management at Kite or then into a transactions role in business development at Exelixis, it's all been learning the pieces, the fundamentals of the school of biotech. And now at Atomic AI, I have the unique opportunity to be both business and science, right? Kind of provide that strategic leadership on both of those points. And it's been exhilarating and challenging. But that's kind of the reason why I've made the moves that I have.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Is there or can you share, I guess, a pivotal deal or collaboration, Mark, that influenced your leadership style?
Sure. So there were a couple of deals actually at Exelixis actually that I'll flag. One was with Cyropa. And so Cyropa is an early stage European company. They're in the clinic with now two molecules. And Exelixis was looking to find partners with very strong, credible clinical development expertise and with assets that warranted the investment, right, to continue into the clinic and make an impact for patients in oncology. So Cyropa had that phenotype through and through. Very experienced team, folks who really understood oncology, clinical development, how to really ask the right questions of the right molecule to make an impact in patient health. Um, the interesting learning from the Cyropa deal, though, is that Exelixis was looking for a partner that could basically operate independently, bring that forward, and bring it to a spot where we could transact like an option deal, right? So can you move it forward to where you've got clinical proof of concept, and then Exelixis would take it over? That sort of deal was very different for me, right? Where in previous other transactions, the larger company, whether it be Amgen, Kite, et cetera, would be responsible for all activity with the molecule, right? Just take this thing in and push it forward as fast as we can. Trusting another company to do that, right, on a critical program and prioritize accordingly and make the right decisions, it requires trust. And it requires aligned incentives, right? When you're thinking about the contract and how you structure kind of the nuts and bolts of your collaboration. Um, the Cyropa deal taught me a variety of things. I mean, it kind of forced a greater level of collaboration than I had been exposed to previously. It required a great deal of cross-functional communication throughout both Exelixis and Cyropa, where we had to make sure that both clinical development teams saw eye to eye. What are the experiments that are really necessary to bring that forward? And it taught me the value, basically, of ensuring, build that trust, enshrine that trust in contract, and ensure that all phases of the collaboration, both parties win. Because when those incentives are aligned, you can be sure, right, that both parties want the very best of the molecule. There's no sort of, there's no incentives to do something other than do the right thing for patients. And
That's cool.
so, yeah, so that was a really interesting deal for me. Another one was in silico medicines, actually. So that was a phase one ready asset that in silico was developing. It was a USB1 inhibitor in oncology. And while at Exelixis, of course, we were working on a variety of different oncology agents. This was the first time that I had witnessed up close the power of artificial intelligence. The in silico medicines team made a compound that we believe is, best in class. Exelixis is in clinical development with that program now, and really showed, with a mix of both cutting edge artificial intelligence, but not to be forgotten, a great medicinal chemistry team, you can make really solid impact on drug discovery using kind of cutting edge tools and know-how. And so that really showed me, there might be other cutting edge methods that can help fast track some of these molecules and lead to great outcomes.
That's fantastic. True partnership, it sounds like all the way around. How do
Absolutely.
as far as your business and scientific experiences, How do they now, I guess, inform the way that you lead discovery there at Atomic AI?
Yeah. Um, so I don't think they're a divorced thing.
Hmm.
It's all in the same goal. But I think the background enables me to think about multiple alternative and sometimes conflicting points of view when we make decisions from a discovery perspective. I mean, all things with target or with discovery come back to the first question: what target do you go after? Right, for example. And so being able to think about the scientific feasibility, the commercial ability, right, competitive landscape for a particular target and indication, um, bringing together all those pieces that are necessary for the success of a molecule, which is one part business and one part science, of course. It gives a different lens and perspective, and it enables me to ask the right questions of the team. I mean, the one thing that I think we all like, recognize in the industry is that none of us know everything. Right, we're all kind of making it up as we go, but we're also asking the people that truly know what they're doing, and being able to be fluent and ask the right questions and get the right information to inform decision making is really the hallmark of an effective leader. Um, and so that kind of dual fluency enables me to get to the right questions and make decisions rapidly that are hopefully going to lead to success of the program.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can see that as a definite advantage. Let's talk a little bit about Atomic AI and the platform and what you all are doing. How does Atomic AI's platform merge AI and structural biology to advance drug discovery?
Yeah. So we're really excited in the capabilities that we build at Atomic. So the best way to describe Atomic AI is, everybody has seen the power, right, of large language models. So things like ChatGPT. And many of us within the drug discovery field have used tools for doing protein folding, tools like AlphaFold, for example, right? Huge gains kind of in predictive capability using those structural tools, particularly over the last few years. It's been quite incredible to witness the progress. What Atomic AI does is use these basic tools, right? Or they're not basic, they're quite advanced, but these new cutting edge tools and apply it to the question of RNA structure. But the real fundamental issue with RNA is when you compare that to protein, you have vastly fewer experimentally derived structures for RNA versus protein. So when you're training a model, right, and you're trying to train it on protein, you've got, hundreds of thousands of examples, right, of experimentally derived protein structures. RNA, you might have, several thousand. And of that, many are, variations of a theme. They're all basically the same types of RNA, tRNAs, ribosomal RNAs, that sort of thing. So the same approach doesn't work. And it really comes down to, well, how do you then try to make traction to develop high accuracy structure prediction for RNA, but without like the resource of the PDB to do it? And so Atomic set out to answer that question by collecting related data sets. Things that are related to RNA structure, they definitely are influenced by the structure. Things like chemical probing or interaction mapping, things like that, that we could generate in very, very large scales and in a way that would be highly reproducible such that you can train a machine learning model. So Atomic has collected what we firmly believe is the world's largest proprietary data set of RNA-centric related information. And we use that to train our foundation model, Atom1. And we use that predictive capability then to ask the structure question. Can we predict a three-dimensional structure of RNA with very high accuracy? And we find that based on our internal work and looking at the external landscape, we believe firmly we have the most accurate predictive capabilities for RNA in general, stepping out beyond the PDB structures into the RNAs that matter for human health. And so, with this capability in mind, we can predict RNA structure. We use that then to help develop small molecules that target RNA structure specifically and potently. And that's really the next frontier in terms of RNA targeting. The structure itself does not make a drug. I mean, I think everybody who's worked in drug discovery knows that. Just because we have a crystal structure doesn't mean you can just pop out a small molecule that hits that structure. But it does make that structural or the next steps of structure-guided drug design much more tractable. It gives you unique hypotheses to test. And in the hands of a very skilled medicinal chemist, it can be the difference between a failed program and a program where you've got chemical matter that's now tractable. And so that's really what we aim to do. It's that AI-enabled drug discovery where you now have these unique insights and starting points, and then use that to drive AI-enabled drug discovery using the know-how and great people we've got at Atomic. And so right now we're focused on using these structures to develop highly selective and potent small molecule binders, and we are functionalizing those, turning them into RNA degraders. And the basic premise there is imagine you could take a pill and we could specifically knock down the expression of any mRNA or any gene in the human body. That could be a pretty powerful tool, and it unlocks a wide swath of biology that's been previously untractable. I think most people working in drug discovery could probably give you a list of 15 to 20 different genes, Don, that we know from the literature based on studies, if you hit that thing specifically, you can greatly extend a patient's lifespan. You could potentially, you know, you could potentially go after some very interesting and undruggable current diseases. And so that's what we aim to do using artificial intelligence as a unique edge.
Fantastic, Mark. What just a little more on RNA. What makes RNA structures such compelling drug targets?
Yeah. So just to be honest, RNA is hard. This is a really difficult drug target. And that's the reason why I think most companies have been avoiding it, right? Pharma, up until recently, had been avoiding RNA structure targeting for good reason. It's much less diverse in terms of the repeating residues, right, of RNA versus proteins. The flexibility is higher, significantly higher for RNA. Getting experimental structures is more difficult across the board, very, very hard. But it's all about unlocking the unique biology that you can't access if you start targeting a gene at the protein level. The RNA level is a full new way to get at serious diseases. So, for example, there are many protein targets where you need to hit one homolog, right, of a gene family. And these proteins might be very highly similar. The NAV programs, right, or NAV family of proteins is a great example, right? NAV 1.7 is a fantastic pain target, well documented, great human genetics, right, that supports that target that you can easily find. And so we know that if we were able to hit NAV 1.7 very specifically, you could have a profound impact in the treatment of pain. However, there are NAV family members that if you hit are highly toxic. And at a protein level, it is very difficult to get the selectivity necessary to hit 1.7 only. And so um, while I can't tell you if RNA level is perfect for 1.7 versus the other family members, going after the RNA level significantly expands the diversity that you can potentially target. And so that's one example of where, you know, there might be a unique RNA structure in 1.7, let's say, versus 1.8, 1.9, some of these other NAV family members. And that gives you a unique edge for druggability. There's other proteins that there may not be a pocket. It might be an intracellular protein without a good kind of druggable pocket. But it turns out at the RNA level, in one of the, let's say a 3' UTR, there might be this amazing RNA structure with complexity and stability that might enable you to get a toehold on that biology. And so that's really what we're aiming to do. But up until recently, before we had these structural prediction tools, you're doing all that work blind. And RNA is hard on all sorts of levels. So doing that blind is kind of a fool's errand in many ways. So we hope to make that a much more tractable, way to approach this currently undruggable disease biology.
It's great. Speaking about the AI side of the equation, Mark, as well, which trends or what trends, maybe in AI drug driven drug discovery and development, do you believe will have the greatest impact as you look out over the next, maybe the short to intermediate term, next few years?
Yeah, great question, Don. So, one of the things that strikes me is that companies, both small and large, are still trying to understand the best ways to train and the best ways to utilize artificial intelligence in their many different processes. So a lot of this comes down to asking the right questions of artificial intelligence, right? Much like entering the wrong prompt for ChatGPT can give you something completely irrelevant, throw it down a rabbit hole. With the artificial intelligence used in drug discovery, the same thing can happen, but you may not realize it's going down the rabbit hole for a while. So asking the right question, but that also means trying to solve the right problem. The way that I view the use of AI in these processes is try not to do something that's better, faster, cheaper. Try to do something that you can't currently do, right? And that's one of the things that we've kind of built Atomic's capability on. Let's do the things that are just not that feasible from an experimental perspective. But to do that, it requires very large amounts of very custom data. And so the generation of that data, I think, is going to be where we're going to see significant expansion and let's say build out within pharmas, particularly large pharmas, I think are going to benefit from this in the coming years. Um, the interesting part about data collection for artificial intelligence is the data types are simply different than are normally generated in drug discovery processes. And what I mean by that is in order to train, think about ChatGPT for a second, right? A great large learning model or large language model. It's trained on the entire internet, right? And the amount of data is insane, right? It's a lot. Now, if you think about AlphaFold 3, for example, it's trained on every PDB structure, right? Which is, over 200,000 entries, but it's not just the 200,000 entries, it's the many different data points within each of those files. It turns into, I mean, very quickly, millions or even billions of data points quite quickly. With Atomic, our training sets are in the billions, if not actually somewhat larger. So it requires this really large data set. But what's interesting is that data set does not need to be human interpretable. It doesn't, these experiments are uniquely designed for AI training. So it's very high reproducibility so that you don't throw the language model off and it starts thinking about something random, hallucinating, right? As we all know from using these models. It needs very high quality data, highly reproducible, and it has to be in an order of magnitude that has just eluded most drug discovery efforts. And so as pharma is thinking about like how do we use these new and powerful tools, they often will say, we've got these electronic lab notebooks that, thousands of people have worked on over the last 10 years, and you've got all this disparate data. Hate to say it, most of it isn't going to work. If you think about the reproducibility between each of those experiments, unless they were done in a very, very tightly controlled manner and the data upload was done in a very curated way, those experiments were designed for human interpretability. They were not designed for huge scale, highly reproducible nature in a way that AI can make sense of. And so I think the companies that sort of either learn how to very carefully curate the data sets they have and sort of do quality control so the model only sees the really high quality things, or learn to invest in very high quality, very large scale data sets that are related to the questions they really care about. Those are the companies that are really going to benefit from the use of AI, especially in the coming years. So there's a lot of work to do here. Using AI is not without its complication, and it's going to require a very sort of tight coordination between those who understand the nuances of artificial intelligence and those who understand the realities of drug discovery. But the companies that get it right, I mean, you're going to see massive leaps in terms of small molecule design. I hope we're going to see benefits toward unmet or in vitro predictions on potency, toxicity, metabolism, solving the clinical development challenge and trying to predict what happens in the clinic with a particular agent. That would be incredibly powerful. How close we are to that, I don't know. But I think there is a lot to be done, and there's a lot of value that we can realize over time.
Absolutely. It's interesting to think about the data training models and just how important that really is for artificial intelligence. So Let's switch gears and Mark can talk a
Sure.
little bit about scaling, funding, and business strategy. I guess I would start by asking, what are the biggest hurdles in scaling an AI-powered biotech in today's market?
Yeah, it's a great question, Don. Um, so I think one of the biggest learnings for me personally, so I come from, a pharma background, and this is the first time I've really worked with, a company that's investing heavily in artificial intelligence. I mean, basically half of atomic AI is the AI part, right? That's a very significant investment. Um, the thing I didn't realize is how different the world looks when you're talking about tech investors versus biotech investors, right? Tech investors are in it for, the long haul in some ways, and they're trying to invest in the platform and these large language models. And, foundation models can do all of these amazing things and unlock this wide swath of biology. But biotech investors are less about the platform. It's like, okay, you've got a foundation model, that's cute. Show me the asset that came out of it, right? And those are very, I mean, both are perfectly valid, but they are very different questions. It's different valuations, right? It's a different way to think about how to support and grow a business. And so when trying to kind of straddle both of these worlds, we've got, at Atomic, we've got one toe in tech and one tech or one toe in biotech, uh, kind of converging those. So an asset-centric biotech approach versus building a foundation model, it's a challenge. I think we're very thankful at Atomic to have great investors. So, Playground Global is one of the folks that would led our Series A. Great people. They understand the differences, right, in these two worlds and help us to see that through. But I think that is a major challenge. As you think about scaling, right, what happens when you get your first clinical candidate, right? Clinical development costs start going up. So many companies make the decision to, start prioritizing the clinical development of their assets rather than the build out or continued expansion of their platform. And so you see companies kind of, deprioritize, take away the funding, lay off some folks on that side of the business. But from an AI perspective, AI-enabled drug discovery company perspective, we can't. So it's that very sort of careful threading the needle to ensure that we're both investing in the assets and the platform that makes it difficult for AI companies to make an impact. But I believe again, it comes down to making sure that you've got the right people in your corner that understand those differences and are willing to work with you to craft kind of the right path forward to create value.
That's great, Mark. I was just thinking that the asset-centric versus platform-centric, never really thought of it that way, but I definitely can hear you on what you're saying. Let me ask, how do you decide, I guess, when to build in-house versus partnering externally? Obviously, there are a lot of people pouring money into AI related organizations. I suspect you all may even compete with some of those AI tech only type operations. But anyway, how do you all decide, is this should be done in-house versus partnering externally?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we think a lot about, do we have a unique capability or is there a unique need that we can't find on the outside world that we should now invest in? And so, from an experimental perspective, for example, right, would we use a CRO to run a particular experiment versus building it in-house? And we basically go back to the fundamentals. Is this something that we can trust another company to do? Can they execute it in a way that makes sense? How does that compare to sort of the cost and timeline to build it internally? It's a very nuts and bolts, sort of analysis. But we also have to think about the long-term strategy. Is that a core capability that is necessary to support the business? And so, there are some almost rather boring things that we've had to internalize just because it's a core capability. And if we don't have the ability to run that, then, we can't validate our own data, for example. So it's a balance.
Absolutely. Mark, what advice would you have or would you offer to biotech in general, startups seeking their first major partnerships, or for that matter, in fundraising?
Yeah. Um, so I guess my advice here is bring data, right? And think very carefully about, are we solving a problem that is truly a problem? Is it the one that is kind of necessary for us? Are we uniquely able or enabled to solve that problem? And how can I show that we have a line of sight or some proof of concept to get us there? I think particularly for artificial intelligence, most of the pharma folks I talk with, it's like, yeah, that's great, very nice. Can you show me the outputs of the model? Can you show me the outputs of what you're doing? And I think those that make that transition from we've got this great idea to now here's the tangible evidence that this idea works, that's how you lead yourself towards success. So it's a hard road.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, Mark. Let's touch on just the future for a second, and maybe one related question in the industry going on today. We have touched on some of this, I think, already, but are there any other ways where atomic AI is positioning itself to stay ahead? Or I guess how is the company positioning itself to stay ahead in this rapidly evolving field?
Hmm. Yeah, that's another good question there, Don. AI companies are, making headway in all sorts of problems in parallel, and it's very challenging to say with any certainty that you're going to have the best model, the best data set on a particular problem forever. I mean, you're only like one release away from some other competitor that will blow you out of the water. You never know, right? So the way that we think about it is, well, one, we're well positioned. I mean, at this time, I firmly believe that we have the most accurate RNA structure predictions in the world. But to make sure that we have a competitive advantage moving forward, we're investing in one, making those more accurate, more highly predictive of different RNA structures, but also how do we use that foothold, right? That understanding of RNA from an artificial intelligence perspective to now generalize it toward another problem. And how do we add data sets to expand that understanding? So things like, can we help to understand in more detail small molecule RNA interactions at a fundamental physics perspective for lens? Can we expand that to protein? Could we start to think more about pathway biology, for example? There's many things. So for us, it's less about just do this one thing and do it really well and hope no one else can outcompete you. And it's more about broaden the capabilities of the platform in a way that addresses real world biological problems. And so I think it's by that breadth that we're going to be competitive in the long haul.
Fantastic, Mark. Can you share any upcoming milestones or collaborations?
Um, I can't say too much at this time, to be honest with you, Don.
Sure.
We're making some really rapid progress, and there's some things I'm really excited about. But I think we're a little too early to talk in depth.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let me ask then just briefly on the U.S. government, as you are aware, has reduced BARDA's mRNA vaccine activities and redirecting funding towards other vaccine platforms. I was curious how might this influence the trajectory of, if at all, of RNA based drug and vaccine development over the next decade? And I guess do you see it reshaping investment partnership opportunities for biotech companies?
Yeah, I think this has been an unfortunate development, coming out of administration and also public perception, let's say, of mRNA vaccines. Um, I mean, for atomic, I don't think it has an immediate impact. We're using small molecules to target RNA, and so we're not necessarily looking at RNA-based medicines today, although the platform is absolutely applicable to those sort of biological challenges. But I do think it's already influencing where companies and investors are putting their money, right? And kind of where the money flows is where we see the innovation happen, right, within science. And I mean, I personally had, a whole series of mRNA vaccines during COVID. I'm thankful that those were developed in such rapid fashion. And I think it's a bit short-sighted, let's say, to deprioritize the advancements that we've made in that space. Um, my hope is that the country overall can kind of move back toward a direction that's supported by the data and leads to a variety of vaccine options. And I hope one of those options is mRNA vaccines. But I think in the short term, yes, it's certainly going to diminish enthusiasm for investments in our mRNA-based medicines.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you for that. Are there any final thoughts or advice that you'd like to share with our audience? Perhaps something I haven't asked today?
Um, I guess not too much here. I think you've been very thorough, Don. I guess the one thing I'll mention is that um, I have people reach out to me all the time about how do I make the transition from the bench to the business,
Hmm.
or how do I change from one career trajectory to another. Um, and I guess what I would advocate is that the best thing you can do is be curious, and really think hard about all of the different things that interest you and try to learn as much about those as you can. Find mentors across the organization you work with. I owe a great deal to the people that have worked alongside me, or mentors along the way that have shown me entirely new career possibilities. So stay curious and do the things you enjoy, because otherwise it's just not worth it.
Absolutely, Mark. Well said. Finally, how can listeners connect with you or learn more about Atomic AI?
Sure. So we would be enthusiastic to speak with particularly large pharma partners who might be interested in exploring RNA targeted small molecules and therapeutics. You can reach us by going to our website, atomic.ai, and we've got some contact information there. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Happy to respond to messages there. But we're always looking for partners that share enthusiasm for going after difficult or almost impossible to drug disease biology through other means, that are open to taking a shot on RNA. And I firmly believe that our tools and capabilities and open that possibility for a variety of drug targets. So looking forward to interacting with folks.
Fantastic, Mark. That wraps up this episode of Executive Insights for Life Sciences Innovators. I appreciate you tuning in and hope that you found today's conversation valuable. If you enjoyed the discussion, please be sure to leave a review and share it with your network. Please also mark your calendars for September 19th at 1 o'clock Eastern Time with Mike Stokeham, CEO of Bantam Pharmaceuticals. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.